here at Pro Tour 25th Anniversary. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. This is Paul Cheon, and we have reached the end of the tournament. We're ready to cut to a top four. One more round to go. We have 4 win-and-ins, as Rich just described, live on the air. But the one we're going to watch, Josh Utter-Leyton, Ben Stark, and Martin Juza at 10-3. They're facing off another team that's 10-3 that you will have gotten to know quite well if you were with us for the bulk of the stream. Jacob Wilson, Rizzi, and Shenhar. They're seated, they're faced off, they're ready to go. Let's head on down to snap for round number 14 here from Pro Tour 25th Anniversary.
Oh, it's my big helix! Oh my God!
Oh, easy game!
He didn't look and that was it!
What have you done? What is it? What is not? Is it Huey Jensen is your world champion?
Hello and welcome back to coverage here at Pro Tour 25th Anniversary. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Paul Cheon, and it all comes down to this, round number 14 of team play. We have 2 teams vying for their spot in the top 4. The winner of this round is in. The loser, nope, you're out. Josh Utter-Leyton is going to kick things off for his team. He's also playing with Ben Stark and Martin Juza. Take a look at Raptor, as he is affectionately known. He's playing Blue-Black Shadow Delver, if you will, in Legacy. On the other side of the table, though, a Teamer Delver specialist, Jacob Wilson. Lots of success at the Pro Tour level for Jacob. His teammates, Rizzi and Shenhar, are sitting across from him as well. But we are ready to go, and we're going to kick things off with Legacy. What do you make of the matchup, Paul? A little bit of a different take on the blue-black deck here from Josh Utter-Leyton. Death Shadow, of course, but also some cool technology in there with Reanimate in the main and a few other neat little tricks.
Yeah, I mean, just taking a look at the cards, they do share a lot of very similar cards. Instead of a card like Thoughtseize, which is Disruption, Jacob Wilson just has more counter magic. Jacob Wilson has access to, difficult to deal with threats in Nimble Mongoose, but at the same time, Josh Utter-Leyton just has bigger creatures in Gurmag Angler and the Death Shadow. So this is going to be super close. I think it's going to be a skill matchup, and both of these players are one of the best in the world. So Jacob Wilson's been playing this deck for many years and has had lots of success with this deck.
That's right. He kicks things off with Ponder after having won the die roll. Volcanic Island for him on the battlefield. No fetch needed, at least thus far. But for Josh Utter-Leyton, you're going to see kind of a weird scene. Normally in Legacy, you will see Underground Sea in that position, but given that we are dealing with Death Shadow, they actually do play some shock lands and want to get their life total low.
There are actually more shock lands in the deck than there are dual lands. We're looking at 3 Watery Graves and 2 Underground Seas in the deck.
Funny.
Yeah, so one thing that Josh has to be a little bit careful of, you don't see it too often in Legacy, but Jacob Wilson is playing 4 copies of Lightning Bolt, so he has to manage his life total a little bit. Just make sure he can't, put himself in a situation where he can get double bolted out by getting too low to get some big Death Shadows onto the battlefield. This is, I can't even remember the last time where every single match was a win in it.
Yeah, this is
nobody's
crazy.
locked.
It's not just these ones in the feature match area. It's every single match that we have on our top 8 teams are playing each other, and they're all just clean win-ins.
Yeah.
All of the mana available now for Wilson. He's got all 3 of his colors for Teamer. And let's see what his play is this turn. Perhaps a Mongoose? No, he's tapping 2 lands. He's just going to run out a Tarmogoyf.
Yeah.
He doesn't care if he's got a Daze. He's just running it.
Right. If Josh Utter-Leyton has a Daze, Jacob Wilson has his own Daze to counter it. So he's feeling pretty safe about running out this Tarmogoyf. And it presents a decent clock. So Josh Utter-Leyton going for the Daze here, but,
Daze, re-Daze.
Daze your Daze. Daze for Daze.
That is definitely the case here. And it looks like Tarmogoyf is going to resolve instant land sorcery in the graveyards already. So 3-powered Tarmogoyf.
Now
hello.
Does Josh Utter-Leyton have a Fatal Push or a Snuff Out to deal with this Tarmogoyf?
Yeah, he does have answers in his list for sure. This isn't the type of deck that can't deal with a resolved creature, but boy, he is going to need one of those.
Right. He does have a couple of Death Shadows in hand. So, he can afford to take a couple of hits off this Tarmogoyf, and then he can just put himself in a position where he just drops double Death Shadow, which is just going to be bigger than that Tarmogoyf that's on the battlefield.
Josh is having to do a lot of math here, just even when it comes to playing his lands and how he wants to play them, because he does need to get his life total low enough for Death Shadows to be bigger than Tarmogoyf, but he does want to avoid that situation that you described earlier, Paul, of putting himself dead to a bolt or two.
Right. Looks like Josh is being a little more careful with his life total here, fetching the Underground Sea this time around.
He's also just done for the turn.
And if you're wondering why Josh Utter-Leyton opted to just use his fetch land immediately, that's because Jacob Wilson is playing Teamer Delver, and frequently in Teamer Delver, you play 4 copies of Stifle. So you want to make sure you can fetch your lands when you can, and when Jacob Wilson doesn't have access to mana to stifle the triggered ability on those fetch lands.
And by the way, he is running all 4 as well, so smart move by Utter-Leyton there. Though, I got to say, things are starting to slip away from him rather quickly. A pair of nimble mongooses has hit the battlefield. Now, to be fair, they're only 1/1s at the moment, so the clock isn't obscene, but Josh really does need to get something going and quickly, because as we've seen, those things will get to threshold very quickly, and the clock's going to only be a couple of turns.
Yeah, but keep in mind, Josh Utter-Leyton is holding 2 copies of Death Shadow in his hand, so if he just takes a hit this turn, all of a sudden he's going to have a pair of Death Shadows on the battlefield that's going to just be bigger than all the creatures in play. This Tarmogoyf is currently sitting as a 3/4,
right?
And the 2 Nimble Mongoose are both 1/1s currently. So if he takes 5, he's going to go down to 8, and he's going to have a pair of 5/5 Death Shadows.
By the way, chat's now throwing out all of their takes on the plural for.
There has to be just a proper term. I mean, a mongoose is just an actual animal.
I looked it up.
Oh, you actually know?
There are 2 acceptable plurals for.
Oh, there's multiple?
Yeah. So
wow.
I found that answer entirely unacceptable. And now the chat's saying that mongai is one you can
mongai?
Mongooses?
Really?
They're saying
that one's hard to believe.
I am certainly not backing them up on it. All right, what does Josh have here? Again, he really needs to get something rolling here, or this game's going to just cascade out of control.
Yeah, again, Josh just choosing to fetch.
Watery Grave there.
Fetch immediately, yeah. This allows him to run out both of the Death Shadows if he wants. He might want to be interested in playing around the Daze here. Or he might feel like he's too behind that he just has to play another one out.
That's exactly how he feels, but I think he's going to benefit from that, because Jacob's basically out of gas. He has Spell Snare and a couple of lands in his hand. He does find a Ponder, though, which is a great way to try to reload.
So I want to talk about an interesting rules interaction here with the 2 Death Shadows in play that Josh Utter-Leyton has.
Okay.
Now, if Jacob Wilson chooses to attack with all of his creatures, the Death Shadows are currently 3/3s, right? If Josh Utter-Leyton chooses to put both of those Death Shadows in front of the Nimble Mongooses, he will still take 3 damage from the Tarmogoyf, and damage when it resolves all at once. I believe that the Death Shadows will survive as 6/6s.
Interesting.
But currently the Nimble Mongoose, I mean, Jacob Wilson is still 3 cards away from Threshold. Polygoose?
Multi-goose? All right. We're going to let them figure that out,
yeah.
Paul. I give up. English has proven too difficult for the Nimble Mongoose. And look at that. The Death Shadows completely holding off the board. And that is exactly what Josh needed. He needed to affect the board immediately. He did. And now can he turn this thing right back around in his favor? He has the ability to manipulate his own life total pretty freely with this deck thanks to his mana base.
Yeah, I think it's actually very close. It's really going to come down to kind of the rest of these players' draws, actually.
Well, I like Josh's position given that he just has more cards in hand. He's got 5 cards right now.
Ooh, and he has Brainstorm plus Fetch Land.
Boy.
And his hand is Force of Will plus Stubborn Denial. And he does have the ability to make 4/4 Death Shadows here to turn that Stubborn Denial into a 1-mana negate.
He may have to do that. Here's Force of Will.
Yeah,
on
but
the Brainstorm.
it is awkward, though, because in order to make the Stubborn Denials into a one-mana negate, he's going to have to use that fetch land to make the Death Shadows into 4/4s.
Which makes the Brainstorm
Much worse.
less good, yeah. Now, what if Josh has another fetch land in hand? Now, he's already played a land this turn, but I believe he's got a Polluted Delta as well. Would you be willing to compromise there that he can't crack it right away, but he could shuffle away whatever that last card is?
Yeah, if he has a second fetch land in hand, it's likely worth it.
Okay.
And I think at this point, you know, it seems like both players are kind of in top deck mode. Resolving this Brainstorm does seem very, very important. That's going to allow Josh just to dig through more cards. And, you know, if he is able to find another threat, a Gurmag Angler or a Death Shadow, he might be able to start attacking with one of his creatures.
And there it is. Stubborn Denial from Josh Utter-Leyton is going to protect his Brainstorm and also represent a 2-for-1 here. I mean, he gets to counter a Force of Will that was alternate cost paid for. Now resolve Brainstorm.
Actually, removing that Spell Snare was one of the better cards for Jacob Wilson to remove because Josh Utter-Leyton has basically no 2-drops in his entire deck. I think Daze is the only 2-drop.
That's interesting.
That looks like a pretty strong Brainstorm. I think I see another Brainstorm in Josh Utter-Leyton's hand. But I don't think he's in a position here to attack just yet. I think he wants to find one more threat.
You see Josh's eyes dart over to the graveyard
Oh,
of Jacob Wilson. He's
is he
currently have
attacking?
5 cards in his yard. Yes, he is sending in this Death Shadow.
Oh, wow.
Josh, it looks like he has Street Wraith as a pump spell.
Right. He's looking to maybe see if this will induce some kind of weird block.
Multi-block of some sort.
Right, because currently the Tarmogoyf is, it looks to be a 3/4. And if he double blocks with Tarmogoyf plus Nimble Mongoose, Josh Utter-Leyton could cycle the Street Wraith here. But
Oh, and look at this. He even has a Delver of Secrets.
he's got a Delver. He's probably got a blue spell on top, too, because he currently has a Force of Will in his hand and a Street Wraith.
Another Ponder here for Jacob. And he sees, I think, a Shuffle. Yeah, it was 2 lands and a Spell Snare. As you mentioned, he doesn't seem too keen on Spell Snare. He is pretty quick to exile it to the Force of Will, and he doesn't want it here. So he's going to shuffle.
Yeah, and just seeing how this is playing out, I mean, maybe the blue-black deck is actually favored here. Death Shadow just seems to be the creature that trumps everything on the battlefield.
Yep. You have to be very careful with it, given the presence of Lightning Bolt, but if you are, it rewards you.
Yeah.
It's cheaper than Tarmogoyf, yet bigger. How many cards do you have, Josh? 3.
Whoa. Not flipped yet. All right.
Delver for Wilson passes the turn back. Trigger. And there it is. Brainstorm. You saw it. It was a blue card, all right. Perhaps the blue card.
Definitely. And now Josh has to be a little bit careful.
Right.
He is looking at a Delver as well on the other side.
After resolve Ponder,
right? And he's at 9 life. He's got to be careful with these attacks. He does have a Brainstorm. It's a question to see whether or not he's going to choose to fire it off first to get a little more information as to what to do this turn. For example, if he brainstorms and finds some combination of fatal pushes, he might look to go in. If he has, he could also potentially, threaten lethal damage with the Death Shadows if he can get himself low enough. We do know that he has a Street Wraith in hand, so that does guarantee that he could at least make 6/6 Death Shadows. He does need to be careful about going to 3 or less life, however, because Jacob Wilson could easily be holding a lightning bolt in his hand.
As it turns out, Jacob has a volcanic island. So Josh is going to repeat his attack of last turn with just one Death Shadow.
Yeah, so playing it safe here. And it looks like Josh would be more than happy to trade his Delver with Jacob Wilson's Delver if it does flip on the following turn. And Josh now, it's more on board at this point. You know, he was representing Street Wraith in the previous turn, but now he's got a Polluted Delta on the battlefield, which you can choose to sack and get a fetch land, which is basically representing, giving Death Shadow the ability to get +3/+3.
Right.
He would be able to turn it into a 7/7 this turn. Now, if Jacob Wilson chooses not to block, what is Josh going to do? It looks like he's not going to fetch here. And he really needs this to be a relevant spell. Daze is not what he was looking for. He wanted something like a Ponder or a Brainstorm.
That's right. Yeah, he actually had shuffled with that Ponder from prior, so that was just kind of a we got there flip. But
right.
Did we? Given that it was
Unclear.
the Daze, not really what he wanted, though it does give him a Delver of Secret's transformation. Now it's Insectal Aberration, so he does have that going for him.
I think Jacob wants to attack here because if he does give himself Threshold. He's got 6 cards in his graveyard, and Josh definitely kept the Aberration back as a way to just kind of, keep his life total healthy.
Okay. So Josh could count, or excuse me, Jacob could count on a trade there.
Right, exactly.
And now he did, in fact, trade. So 7 cards in the graveyard. Nimble Mongoose now 3/3 on both of them.
Yeah. All right, is it Brainstorm time? Sure is. Has he found another threat?
Get rid of these 2 lands and shuffle them away with the Polluted Delta.
Yeah.
Then he can cast a Ponder if he hasn't found a threat.
He could even cast Thoughtseize first so that he doesn't get stifled. You know, but one of the cards in Jacob's hand is a Daze that we know about.
Right, and so does Josh.
I don't think Josh knows about the other card, the unknown card. And Stifle is certainly a card that he could have, given that he really hasn't played anything.
Mm-hmm. Josh will be thinking back to earlier points in the game and wondering, was there a time when he could have cast a Stifle and would have?
Right. Well, the thing is, Josh has also been super careful and playing around Stifle whenever he could, right? So, often you would just kind of expect Jacob to have it stranded in his hand if he did. So,
once again, Death Shadow hitting the red zone all by its lonesome. The other one holding back the entire team of Wilson.
So again, with that fetch land on the battlefield, Death Shadow can become a 7/7. But Jacob Wilson does have Threshold, and I think he's considering potentially a triple block. He really needs to find a way to get this Death Shadow off the board. But we know that Josh Utter-Leyton has a Street Wraith in hand, which would turn it into a 9/9.
Which is almost lethal, by the way.
Right. So he can turn it into a 9/9. Now, Jacob Wilson has 2 3/3 Mongooses and a 3/4 Tarmogoyf. So if he does go with the triple block, he could get one of those off the board, but he would be losing both of the Nimble Mongoose on the
I
battlefield.
think the Goyf's 4/5 now.
Is it a 4? Is there? Oh, right. There's a Delver in the yard. Sure.
Does that change anything, though?
It does. So it means that if Jacob Wilson could also choose to just block with Tarmogoyf and Nimble Mongoose, because on board he's representing just 7 damage off the Death Shadow. But of course, if Josh Utter-Leyton has a Street Wraith, that would be a huge blowout.
If the match goes to turns, you will play 7 additional turns instead of 5.
So there's been slow play warnings, I think, for both players, and they've also informed them that because of that, if the match were to go to turns, they would play 7 instead of 5.
Okay. All right, that is a big draw. It's a Brainstorm from Jacob Wilson.
So what is Jacob's life total now?
Is it 10? Or did
I
he
believe
just...
it would be 5.
Oh, 5, okay.
There we go. Yeah, it got updated. Now it's 5. which is a good place to be
Yeah.
when you've got two 5-5s on the battlefield.
Yeah, Josh Utter-Leyton's representing two lethal attackers here.
All he actually has is Force of Will plus the Street Wraith.
Right.
Thoughtseize is not relevant at this point.
At the same time, if Josh Utter-Leyton does choose to attack with both of the Death Shadows, I would guess that Jacob Wilson will then choose to put the Nimble Mongoose in front of both of the Death Shadows, and then he'll have a Tarmogoyf on the battlefield. Maybe he can look to find a couple of bolts somehow and try to turn it around that way. That's kind of his route to victory.
Brainstorm. Oop. No bolts in there?
As these Death Shadows are just
Yeah, they're
so problematic.
Impressive. Looks like a couple of lands and maybe another daze. Ugh.
Yeah.
See a Force of Will and a daze in hand now for Wilson. But that's just really not what he wants to see. And he's in.
Oh,
Everybody in
getting
the red
aggressive.
zone. 5-5 blocking 4-5.
All right, so this will put Josh Utter-Leyton down to 2.
But Josh says, I have Force of Will, so if you bolt me with your 1 red mana source, I can go to 1.
And I think he's conceding.
Oh, and it looks like Wilson is done here. Josh Utter-Leyton takes down game 1. Martin Juza takes down his game 1. And the team from ChannelFireball are up 2-0 down in the feature match area and off to a good start towards that top 4 finish that all these teams are vying for here in our last round. We're going to bring you each and every game. Got a lot more to bring you. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after these messages. Welcome back to the feature match area here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Paul Cheon. We have a win and in for top 4 going on in our feature match area right now. We also have Tim Willoughby down on the floor with updates from our other matches.
Well, you got a chance to see Josh Utter-Leyton winning his game 1. On the back table, though, Martin Juza was able to pick up his first game against Shenhar. The red-black deck against Esper Control was able to get down Chandra early on and get it all the way up to the emblem. Believe it or not, having a Chandra emblem pretty good against a control deck. And as things go in our second game, life totals very low for Shenhar, but he does have the Scarab God down. That one pretty close, but for now, we're going to be going across to the modern. Still game 1. Ben Stark and Mattia Rizzi.
Thank you, Tim. Let's take a look at the matchup here, Paul. We've got Ben Stark on Ironworks Combo, otherwise known as KCI. On the other side of the table, anybody who's been watching this live with us knows that Mattia Rizzi's playing Blue-White Control. He has been playing it in the last 2 rounds, and to great fanfare, he has made it extremely exciting with these last-minute wins for his team, just shouldering the load. Oh, and look at this, Teferi with 8 loyalty, and Ben Stark just had to use his spell bomb just to knock it back down to 6.
Yep. Cannot afford to get emblemed here. And this is game 1, so, you know, at least in the first game, I would expect Ben Stark to be favored in this matchup because Mattia Rizzi has a ton of removal in his deck that act as dead cards. He's got Path, he's got Terminus, Wrath of God, Supreme Verdict. I mean, Path to Exile is effective against stopping the Scrap Trawler, but there's just a lot of removal in here that isn't great. And he also is shaving on counter magic. So as a result, I thought it would be good, but it looks like you know, an Ancestral Vision is resolved and there's a Teferi on the battlefield. So you know, plenty of bad cards to discard, and I think it looks like he's just. His game plan here is to keep ticking up that Teferi and try to get it to the emblem.
Yeah, he had it right there on the brink, but Ben said, I guess I'll use my spell bomb to make sure that you can't do that, at least for another couple of turns.
Yeah, but that can't feel too bad either, right? When Ben Stark could certainly be using that Pyrite spell bomb to cycle, to try to combo off here.
Looking down on the lower left-hand side of your screen there, seen a couple of dots by Martin Juza's name. It looks like he may have taken down his match against Shenhar. We knew he was Shenhar was at low life total. Perhaps Juza found a way to finish him off and get that all-important first match win towards the round. Yep. A big step towards the top 4 for ChannelFireball. Oh, look at
wow. This! Is that a Terrarion-fueled EE for 5?
Yes!
Very nice.
Engineered explosives for 5. It looks like it's going to get Cryptic commanded right out of here, though. Right. But I love the effort there from Stark.
Good try. Good try.
Have I ever seen an explosives for 5? I don't know if I've seen one on camera.
That is the first one that I've seen for 5.
Well, then definitely me too. Oh, mismatch.
Whoa, yeah.
For Stark.
Whoa,
shocking.
whoa.
And he's got an Ichor Wellspring as well. It's going to draw him a card. No, it's not going to draw a card. It's going to get spell snared, and that's a good one there for Rizzi.
Yeah, Rizzi is just up so many cards here that he can fire away those counter spells to get those cards whenever he wants. And also not a lot of other great 2-mana cards to spell snare. But look at Rizzi's hand. It is pretty loaded.
Wow,
He's got Negate, Cryptic,
loaded.
and Logic Knot.
Pretty loaded, he says. There's a Snapcaster and Jace as well. Hey, at least the Supreme Verdict doesn't do anything. He's going to play Jace the Mind Sculptor.
It's a race to see which one you can emblem first.
Ben's looking around in his graveyard for an answer for Jace. Didn't find one.
Yeah.
It turns out this is not good news for Ben Stark. Mattia Rizzi has been on a roll, and it looks like he may continue it here.
Keep in mind, though, Ben Stark has been sandbagging a lot of cards in his hand.
Yeah.
So this is kind of an opportunity for him to maybe try and go off because Rizzi does have 2 lands that he tapped for to cast the Jace the Mind Sculptor. So he's only got access to 6 mana here. So 2 counter spells most likely is what he's representing here.
That's what he has. He has Cryptic plus Negate.
Will Ben be able to find a way to fight through both of these counter spells?
Ben also currently doesn't have a Kark Clan Ironworks at his disposal, which is going to be a problem. We found another Engineered Explosives.
Yeah.
Could see that happen again. This one would also just get Crypticed, or at least negated.
Yeah, I mean, he does want to try to just fight through all of Rizzi's counters, but...
Are they just being held for game 2? Or?
Big up everyone. Are you up or down? Lost.
So you hear the MTGO Traders team kind of getting each other up to date. Are you up or down? I'm down. How did it go for you? I lost. So this one is not going well for MTGO Traders. Josh Utter-Leyton up a game, and Juza having won a match with this one yet undecided, though it does seem to be pretty darn well in Mattia Rizzi's favor at this point.
Yeah.
Give you 2 and I'll take 1.
So I got 23, even 19.
All right.
This is for 4.
He's going to play explosives for 4, this time going after Jason Mind Sculptor.
And Rizzi is certainly going to, very likely to fire off one of his counter spells here.
It's 5 mana open. So
One of his many.
Yeah, so now this is a Logic Knot for 6, as Ben Stark has access to 5 lands to pay for Logic Knot.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pay 6 more.
Okay.
Pay 6 more. Ben says, I'm just going to not.
How about I don't do that? Yeah, he wants to save the negate here because the combination of negate plus Snapcaster Mage means, you know, with 6 mana you have access to 2 hard counters. And if Rizzi can get up to 10 mana, he'll be able to have access to 3 counter spells here.
Interestingly, part of Ben's combo are creatures
Right.
that negate can't actually hit. The Scrap Trawler, which he has 2 copies of in his hand, as well as Mirror Retriever.
Looks like, all right, Ben is getting a little more aggressive here.
He's starting to gear up.
He just played the second Mox, losing the original one, to put a Scrap Trawler onto the battlefield.
Scrappy T.
That cannot get negated, but Rizzi does have access to a Cryptic Command.
You play a land this turn?
I did not play land, I don't think.
Yeah, whatever. It's fine. Just
And there it is.
Yep.
Up to command.
All right, so Ben Stark has been able to get Rizzi to use 2 counterspells, but Rizzi still has Jason Mind Sculptor, Teferi going, negate and Snapcaster Mage to buy back another counterspell if he so wishes. And the Card Clan Ironworks combo doesn't have any instant speed removal, so what he can do is use Snapcaster Mage to cast Cryptic Command, use Cryptic Command to counterspell, then bounce the Snapcaster Mage again back to his hand.
Are you getting me, I assume?
yeah. You keep on top.
That's what I like to hear.
And
I played
A little
this.
humor there from Ben Stark. He walked by the booth on his way to the feature match area, and he stuck his tongue out at us, Paul.
I know.
In a shocking display.
It's like he doesn't feel the pressure that much, maybe.
He is remarkable at being able to shake off what for most people would be immense pressure. I'd be feeling it. My hands would be shaking.
Yeah. Well, he's been in this situation many times in the past.
Do get used to it.
Trawler.
Also feels a little bit, well, yeah. And even at this point, he must be feeling pretty good. Teammate already up a match.
True. Good point.
Josh Utter-Leyton up a game.
Yeah, and interestingly, there is a relief of pressure when you're behind really far somehow.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I'm doing the things I can do. It's not like his deck is the type of deck that requires a lot of interaction. It's not, he's like, well, I'll stop you from casting the Planeswalker. He's just like, yeah, you got a Planeswalker. Kind of at the mercy of the top of his library here.
Teferi very, very close to Emblemy. And the interaction between Teferi with Jace, Teferi Emblem with Jace, every time you activate Jace, you get to exile 3 permanents.
Okay, that's ridiculous. This is, by the way, the new Super Friends. I mean, these two team up in an absolutely brutal way.
Actually got to see this being played in Legacy. What was really funny to see was the French Hall of Fame team of Guillaume Wafotapa, Antoine Roel, and teammate Guillaume Matignon. All 3 of them played blue-white control decks with Teferi in them.
Wait. I just leave this.
Can't pay it.
No, it's
This is exile.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
That is a pile of exile there. You see
Yeah.
that?
Well, the Logic Knot.
Yeah. So Teferi's back up to 8. And it's go time.
Yeah, this I wonder if it's one of those situations where if maybe Ben is so far behind that he might want to just concede here to try to win the match in time, because a draw does not do either team any favors.
Buried Ruin. Do we know if there's a? I wonder if there's a Cart Clan Ironworks in the graveyard already. This game has gone on forever.
Apparently, all 4 scrap trawlers have been cast here.
Okay. There is a KCI. He's gonna get it.
Okay.
He can cast it. It's gonna have to resolve, and it's not going to.
That was fast.
Yeah, I think that probably should do it because, as you said, he can go ultimate brainstorm.
Oh, yeah.
Exile 3 things, and how in the world is Ben Stark going to recover from that?
Yeah, and if he has like another Jace in his hand too, he can just play it and brainstorm again.
Don't even say this, Paul.
That like Charlie list or whatever has 1 negate.
Is it emblem time? It's emblem time.
There we go. Teferi produces his emblem.
So if I say brainstorm, then I have to say trigger, trigger, trigger.
Sure.
Sure.
You probably won't have to. Ben will probably scoop him up if you do.
Yeah. And keep in mind, Ben can't actually crack any of his Mind Stones either, as he only has access to 1 mana. So he's likely going to use the emblem to get rid of both of the Mind Stones
And maybe one of the
and one of the
Darksteel Citadels.
maybe one of the Citadels to kind of try to turn off Metalcraft for the Mox Opal.
Right, exactly. With only 2 cards in hand, though, there's no way that this can backfire for Rizzi, right?
Right, and I believe Rizzi is holding another Teferi. I'm not sure. Oh, no, he's not. But he still has that Snapcaster Mage in hand. Oh, and he's got an Opt. It's another permanent he can choose to remove at instant speed, actually, to
Goodness
disrupt the
sakes.
combo.
By the
It's
way,
like holding up Ancient Grudge, but you draw a card.
It's a lot like Ancient Grudge. No flashback.
Right.
He did, by the way, go for both Mind Stones and a Darksteel Citadel. He gets to attack for 2. Just go.
Yeah.
This is going to be a concession now from Stark, unless he has things he can do this turn, which he does.
I don't know what Ben's looking for here.
Well, this is the last ride of Ben Stark, because if he does have to pass a turn back, that will be it. That Mox Opal's currently turned off.
Yep.
But there we go. Cart Clan Ironworks,
Okay, cryptic.
I think he's just going to counter
Cryptic
it.
Command, counter draw, exile another thing. Oh, this Teferi
counter
looks
draw
gross.
and exile.
Totally.
Counter bounce.
Oh, no, he's going with the counter
Oh,
bounce.
okay, go for the value.
That makes a
play,
lot more
Mattia.
sense because now he can Snapcaster negate still.
Opt.
Exile.
Yep. Draw a card. Exile the other Darksteel Citadel.
Draw trigger. Yep. Gonna exile this.
Just living all the dreams.
Wow. Mattia Rizzi laying it on thick here. Draw a card for the turn, exile this,
Oh, another
brainstorm, exile
brainstorm.
3, leave you with Mox, Opal, and
Oh,
Forest.
man.
Enjoy.
Is he going for the flawless victory here?
Well, he's going to go for it. The question is just if Ben's going to let him, how far he's going to go.
He is. Look at him. He's like, all right, let's keep going.
Ben's got a little fight in him today.
Yeah.
Though he does need to keep an eye on the clock, probably.
Yeah.
A draw for either team is not favorable.
Right.
Terrarian. Ben says go.
Draw trigger side.
Exile the Terrarian off of his draw step. Brainstorm, you have no permanence.
Trigger.
So
This
what?
is disgusting.
So I think I've maybe figured out what's going on here. You know, Ben doesn't have to concede until he's completely dead. It's not like he's
course
slow playing or anything like that. But keep in mind that Josh Utter-Leyton's match, he's currently up 1-0. And if Jacob Wilson happens to win the next match, if both of these matches end up in a draw, then Team ChannelFireball will pick up the win because Martin Juza won his round.
I see. Good point. Also, there is information to be gained here, is there not?
Yep.
At this point, there isn't, because the colonnades are just going to be lethal. But, you know, playing those last 3 turns ended up taking Stark 70 seconds.
Right.
Wasn't bad at all. And he may have seen one extra card he wasn't sure about.
Right.
You know. So that is Mattia Rizzi, though, putting his team on the board by picking up game number 1 from Ben Stark. And we're back on our first table. This is Josh Utter-Leyton on the left and Jacob Wilson on the right. Wilson really needs to get on the board here, as if he loses, we're done.
Yeah, and he does need to pick up his the pace of play in this match needs to be a little faster if Jacob Wilson does want to you know, give Rizzi a chance too as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, we did have a judge over here a little earlier. There is Wasteland targeting the Watery Grave, but it looks like Josh might go for a Brainstorm in response.
And it resolves. And Josh really needs to find some mana sources here.
Found one.
Is that a Wasteland?
Yep.
That is not a colored source.
Not what you had in mind?
Yeah, but I think he might have a Marsh Flats there as well.
He does.
Yeah. At the same time, he's got to be very careful with that Marsh Flats, as Jacob Wilson could be holding a Stifle. Oh, and he does have a Stifle.
You see Martin Juza in the background saying, "Okay, I did my job, gentlemen." Right now, Josh Utter-Leyton is their best hope, as he's already up a game.
So Jacob Wilson needs to find a threat here.
Right.
And it looks like he just drew Tarmogoyf. So
Does that count?
That counts. I'm going to go with yes on that one.
All right.
He could still choose to play it a little bit slow here. Opt to, go for the end of turn Brainstorm with a fetch land available.
He is.
Optimize his hand and then play Tarmogoyf next turn with access to Stifle and Daze.
Perhaps also just respecting Daze from Josh.
Right. This is a really awkward situation here because Josh knows about the Stifle that Jacob Wilson plays. He just cannot afford really to fetch this Marsh Flats.
Maybe he can force the issue with this Wasteland, though. He really wants the mana himself.
Now, if Jacob Wilson really likes his hand and wants to play it even slower, maybe he doesn't play this Brainstorm. As his hand is quite strong here. The only card he doesn't really need is that Volcanic Island.
He's going to play it.
All right, here we go.
The end of turn, Brainstorm goes on the stack. Now, this gets interesting on how Josh wants to handle it. Right now, there is no Stifle available, but if Jacob cracks his fetch, he will have those shields down, as it were.
Oh, and look at this. He's Wastelanding in response.
Okay.
And Jacob has a land, so he's going to let that happen.
Yeah.
Now, in response, Josh Utter-Leyton could choose to go for the fetch here, which is
interesting.
Which is a really big blowout if Jacob Wilson has a Stifle. However, this prevents Jacob Wilson from fully maximizing on the potential of his Brainstorm, as the combination of Brainstorm plus fetch land is very, very strong.
Okay, so... Oh, and look at
and he's going to do it.
He's going for it because Jacob does have Stifle.
Oh, this is going to be brutal. Josh Utter-Leyton cannot play
now.
any spells in his hand.
There it is.
Yep.
Stifle, and then he will resolve his Brainstorm, assuming that this all goes off. Also, no Daze available here. And Stifle resolves, then Brainstorm resolves. So now Jacob Wilson way ahead.
Right, he's got a Force and a Daze as well, along with Tarmogoyf.
Boy, passing the turn worked out well for Jacob Wilson there. Now he can just slam Goyf, pass the turn back, and be way ahead of Josh Utter-Leyton, who really needs to find mana, and did.
It does.
Polluted Delta.
All right, well, that's definitely going to help. He needs to play something right now. The question is, what is he going to go for? He does have the ability to just cast a Fatal Push here if he wants. But keep in mind, Jacob Wilson does have access to the Daze and the Force of Will. And if you talk about, which deck truly maximizes on Daze, it's got to be the Teamer version of the deck, because this deck can also shut off people from getting mana by stifling fetch lands.
And look at this. He's going to go for Fatal Push, really forcing the issue here on Wilson, because taking away his threat means that Josh could buy a lot of time, and it's going to be Daze.
But Josh Utter-Leyton has his own Daze.
Daze your right back.
Is it time for Force of Will?
He'd have to exile his Stifle, and it would leave him empty-handed.
This is a tough spot for Jacob Wilson, because Josh Utter-Leyton also has, I believe, he has a Death Shadow in his hand. So if he fights over the Tarmogoyf and lets the Tarmogoyf resolves and gets in a few hits, Josh can still follow that up by just casting Death Shadow.
That's right.
Which will then just brick wall the Tarmogoyf. And Jacob Wilson at this point is out of cards.
He is going for it, though, to protect that Goyf. He's all in on Tarmogoyf.
Yep.
And all of these things resolve, leaving just the Tarmogoyf standing. He needs to find a Ponder or a Preordain. That's what he found. That's good.
Right.
Start the rebuilding process.
Yeah, he really wants to find a Daze here. I think that would be huge to prevent Josh from playing, you know, a Gurmag Angler or another Fatal Push this turn.
It was Ponder that he found. He could still hit a Daze, though.
It's a Goose.
Bolt Force Goose.
So I think he really doesn't want to draw that Force of Will. He might
shuffle.
He might shuffle here because
the
you know,
Bolt
sure,
is also not great.
Right, sure, the Nimble Mongoose is a decent draw, but
he's taking it.
Okay. Wait,
it looks like it's a 3-4 right now. So the Goyf gets in for 3, and he passes the turn back. There's another land off the top of the library for Utter-Leyton.
Wow, okay. So given that Josh has drawn the land, I think now this is looking really, really good for Josh Utter-Leyton, actually. Now he can actually just go ahead and play a big Gurmag Angler this turn if he wants, assuming he, you know, doesn't want to play around any more dazes that Jacob Wilson could be holding here.
What a big swing. You know, Jacob was really pressing that mana advantage, but the fact that Josh has drawn multiple lands and been able to still cast spells means that he is now ahead with a much bigger creature. Also, yeah, can he shrink that Tarmogoyf, I wonder?
It's possible.
Like
I mean,
no.
I don't think so, because Jacob Wilson already has land, instant, and sorcery.
Which is all that it was.
Exactly. There were no creatures. Yeah, now this is rough, because Jacob Wilson has a Ponder.
Yeah, but he's going to draw what? Bolt and then Force?
Yeah, right. So it's like, what does he do now? Does he attack with Tarmogoyf? Does he chump attack with Tarmogoyfs just so he can use Lightning Bolt to get Gurmag Angler off the board and then try to win with the lone Nimble Mongoose?
Oof.
Seems really tough.
Feels like a stretch, doesn't it? And plus it leaves you wide open to Josh Utter-Leyton just having some other big threat and making your Mongoose look not so great.
Those lands, those back-to-back lands were absolutely huge for Josh Utter-Leyton. I mean, he was on 0 lands. He had to draw lands to have a chance. But the thing is, if he does draw a land, it swings wildly in his favor because he did have, you know, he did have 5 more cards in his hand.
Yeah, it looks like he's got a backup Underground Sea in his hand as well. So things looking very good for Josh Utter-Leyton. And for those of you that are keeping an eye on the bottom part of your screen, you know what that means. That little dot gets filled in, and the match is over. We have a top 4 team here with Team ChannelFireball, and all of a sudden, they are that close to reaching that goal. Boy, what is Wilson going to do? He's getting up away from the table, perhaps to ask a question from one of the judges, but...
So it looks like we got an update here. Rizzi picking up the win.
Yep. Not
waiting till the last minute to win. He went Stony Silence, which completely shut down Ben Stark and took the game. So Rizzi has been on fire in the feature match area. He's won 3 matches in a row.
He has. He's been tearing it up, and he just beat Ben Stark. There's the 2-for-1 in Josh Utter-Leyton's favor. And now, out of cards and drawing a Force of Will that he can't cast next turn, is Jacob Wilson with the Nimble Mongoose as his only threat. Josh
He said, where'd all your cards go? Oh, no.
Brutal.
What happened, man? Look at me. I got all these.
Well, it turns out when you use stifles and stuff, they're short-term gain, generally speaking. This deck is exceptional at being able to capitalize on that. But if it can't, then this happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's also, you know, when you use Force of Will, you know, you're just naturally down an extra card. And, you know, Jacob in one of those exchanges cast Force of Will, whereas I think Josh Utter-Leyton boarded out all of his forces in this matchup.
What happened to all your
That is savage.
And the Mongoose does not attack their spot seas.
Right. And Josh
Utter-Leyton even cast it.
He even has a Diabolic Edict for that Nimble Mongoose that's on the battlefield.
Team ChannelFireball has their hopes and dreams in the hands of a very worthy competitor, Josh Utter-Leyton. Down goes the Nimble Mongoose. In comes the team.
Yeah, and
it's only 4 here, but still, that's going to add up very quickly. And this is an actual fresh top deck now from Wilson, and he's got a lot riding on it. And it's a Tarmogoyf off the top. So now Josh needs a way to lower his life total. Oh, it's a fetch land. Or that might have been actually a Watery Grave.
Yep. It is a watery grave.
Does help.
But Josh Utter-Leyton has a handful of cards. He can actually just cast Thoughtseize here to make his Death Shadow big enough to potentially attack. Is he at 12 life right now?
We have him at
Yeah.
12.
So if he's at 12 life, he could, if he has Thoughtseize, he can play Thoughtseize and then a Shock to turn his Death Shadow into a 5/5, and then it would be able to attack through the Tarmogoyf.
That's right. Oh, but he even has more action with
Oh,
the Ponder. This one has fully slipped away from Jacob Wilson. His team's staring at him like, buddy, we need you to win this.
Yeah, and that's another Delver on top as well. So just piling it on here. Let's take a look at what Raptor's working with here. He's got 5 cards in his graveyard.
Looks like he's not going to go for the Thoughtseize plus Watery Grave plan at this point. Likely just going to cast another Delver here.
I can imagine him playing Delver. Now, what is he going to do with the Watery Grave? Is he? Oh, he's playing it tapped. Okay.
All right, passes the turn back to Wilson. Happy to keep attacking in the air. Wilson with a fresh card off the top of his library. We know the card in hand is a Force of Will, but he finds a Ponder.
Okay, what can he dig into? He needs some lightning bolts here. He needs
does.
to point them at these Delvers. As you know, Josh Utter-Leyton currently has one that's flipped, and then there's a Daze on top of his library, so he's going to be able to flip the other one as well.
Well, we're going to do it the hard way here,
Yep.
Paul. Shuffle and hope to peel.
And the thing is, even if he finds a lightning bolt, he's still super behind. Josh Utter-Leyton still has a Gurmag Angler in his hand as well.
That's ready to come down next turn. That looked like a land to me, Paul.
Yep, that was a Misty Rainforest.
Misty Rainforest, indeed. Not what the doctor ordered for Jacob Wilson. And I think we may have one of the teams from ChannelFireball into the top 4. MTGO Traders hanging on by a thread, but it doesn't look like it's going to come together for them. They really couldn't miss a beat there.
Right.
Even if he had drawn a bolt, I don't even know if he's winning the game. There's Thoughtseize to take away the Force of Will and grow his Death Shadow.
Death Shadow is now a 3/3. But it still cannot attack through the Tarmogoyf. But he has just
2 turns.
2 turns. This is a 2-turn clock. And he has a Gurmag Angler that he's going to play as well.
Nothing that Wilson can draw at this point.
With the Daze in his hand.
He has a million things.
Is there anything he can draw
No,
that
I
actually
don't
gets
think
the
so.
job done?
I think this is the game.
And that's going to do it. Josh Utter-Leyton wins the match, giving his team the round. And not only that, but a berth in our top 4. So we've got one team through. Josh Utter-Leyton with a big smile. And why not? He's in.
Win
Congratulations
and
to
in.
those guys. What a great run, by the way, for MTGO Traders. Mattia Rizzi, Jacob Wilson, and Shenhar, we got a chance to follow their story the last 3 rounds, and boy, they made it exciting. They're going to be feeling a little bit of relief that they don't have to come back and do this again, but of course some sadness too that they don't get to do so tomorrow in the top 4.
One thing I want to highlight is I'm just truly impressed by Rizzi. Every single time, all the pressure was placed on him, and he was able to pull through, and he won 3 matches in a row.
He did.
And he played some incredible Magic in all those matches.
Yeah, some tough competition down the stretch, and Rizzi got the job done. Unfortunately, wasn't quite enough for MTGO Traders this time. Instead, ChannelFireball is into the top 4. We have 3 other win-and-ins happening around the tournament area here. We're going to be bringing you updates on all of that and more, but first, we're going to take a short commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages.
Play Standard each week to win special Standard Showdown prize boosters. Core Set 2019 Standard Showdown events are being held near you. Find a location to play at magic.wizards.com/Standard Showdown.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the news desk. We are closing in on the very last matches of Pro Tour 25th anniversary, at least for today. Rich and Maria here with you. We promised them 4 win-and-ins, Maria. Woo! We got 4 win-and-ins. It is clean. 4 winning matches. Without messing you around, let's give you the top 4. So, the first match was Wu, Hull and Orange against Beckstrom, Cohen and Kiefer. The winner would be in. Who won?
Hull, Orange, and Wu are into the top 4.
So on 34 points, they are in. Congratulations to them. Second on our 4 win-and-ins was the feature match, which you've just seen. Josh Utter-Leyton, Ben Stark, Martin Juza against Wilson, Rizzi and Shenhar. And of course,
Utter-Leyton and Stark.
So 3 Hall of Famers are in. The third table saw Jonathan Sukenik, Jacob Nagro and Hunter Cochran up against the Belgians. That's Christophe Gregoire with his Pro Tour top 8, Branko Nyrink and Thomas van der Pelt. Who won?
All right, that's going to be the Belgians. Gregoire, Nyrink, and van der Pelt are into the top 4.
And that just left 1 match of our 4 win-and-ins. That was Marcio Carvalho, Thiago Saporito and Carlos Ramao up against the 3 Brazilian PTQ winners from Chile. They were Pereira, Disconci and Baldin. So was it the superstar team from Latin America or was it the PTQers from Brazil?
All right, it's Hararuya Latin. Ramao, Carvalho and Saporito are in.
So we know that the top 4 for Pro Tour 25th anniversary is Wu, Hull and Orange, Utter-Leyton, Stark and Juza, Gregoire, Nyrink and van der Pelt, and Carvalho, Saporito and Ramao. We'll meet them all in just a few minutes in our top 4 announcement, but that is your top 4 for tomorrow. One of those 12 players who've still got Magic to play tomorrow is down on the floor with Brian David Marshall.
Thanks, Rich. The Wheelcast is going to be getting a few more subscribers in the coming days as Greg Orange has his first Pro Tour top 8 after about maybe a half decade of grinding away here on the Pro Tour, right?
Yeah, that's true. A lot of close calls.
You had a 9th place finish. You've had a few other close calls. What does it feel like after so much time spent? And when I say so much time spent, remember, he's usually playing to time with his control deck, so has put in probably more hours than even Nassif at the Pro Tour these last few years. What does it feel like to finally have that, that box ticked off? I've made a top 8.
It just feels unreal, I suppose. Don't even know exactly how to describe it, but it's great.
Now, tell us about your 2 teammates who are going to be playing with you tomorrow. Tell us who's on the team and how, and what this means for everybody to get here collectively.
I'm sure it means a lot. I mean, I feel like Alan Wu and Ben Hull were sort of not playing as much Magic lately, and they were thinking about sort of taking a break or whatnot. But then we just top forward, so maybe that might change.
All right, now, how do you feel about your decks going into the top 8? Like, what were the big question marks you had as you came into this tournament?
I'm not sure about that. I think we've played most of the teams in the top 4 and beat, I think, a fair amount of them. So hopefully we can just do that again and get there again. That sounds nice.
All right. For people at home who are thinking about playing a blue-white control deck, an orange control deck, if you will, what advice do you have for people in this standard format right now for playing control?
I'll cast a lot of Teferis. Teferi's real nice. That's my advice.
Is that who you want to thank on this auspicious occasion, Teferi?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
All right, Greg Orange, he's going to be playing in his first Pro Tour top 8 tomorrow alongside Alan Wu and, help me here, my brain is fried.
Ben Hull.
And Ben Hull, the former Rookie of the Year. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, well, why don't we, for BDM and plenty more at home, why don't we find out a little more about Alan Wu, Ben Hull and Greg Orange as a trio?
All right, so Greg Orange, actually, I've played a lot of Magic with him at my local game store here in Minneapolis because it's a hometown Pro Tour for him. And he's just a super funny guy, really nice. You saw it there in the interview, thanking Teferi. Loves control, so nothing like it. So this is his first Pro Tour top 8, but that is not the case for all of his teammates. Ben Hull has a Pro Tour top 8 under his belt, none for Alan Wu yet. They've played 30 Pro Tours combined between them, 108 GPs. Career Pro points combined, 285. So pretty impressive resume, and I feel like it was just a matter of time for these team members.
All right, great stuff. So we've already heard from Greg Orange. Let's hear from another very happy camper down on the floor with BDM.
Thanks, Rich. I'm here with Thomas Vanderbilt of the Belgian team that just made the top 4 here at Pro Tour 25th anniversary. Thomas, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been playing Magic for about 7 years, I think. This is my second Pro Tour. Yeah, don't know what more to tell. I haven't had that much success. I have like 1 GP top 8 and a few top 16s. I just got really lucky this weekend and playing with very good friends, and everything just felt like it had to.
Everything just lined up for you guys. But it didn't really just line up for you guys, because we haven't heard much from you guys in this tournament because you got off to a pretty inauspicious start. Tell us how this tournament started for you guys.
We started 0-2. So we were like, okay, I will just play our best, try to get the best record we can, but had no expectations whatsoever. We went 0-2, 2-3, and then just won everything from there on.
So at round 5, you just stopped losing.
Yeah, basically that's it.
Now,
we also, I think only 1 round in the PT, all 3 of us won. So it was always 2-1, always very close. And we just spread our losses perfectly. We were very lucky.
That is the secret to success in this format. Tell me about your 2 teammates. Christophe Grégoire obviously has a Pro Tour top 8 before. Branko Naric, finals of the World Magic Cup. What did you guys all play? How did you guys divide the roles?
So they're 2 very good friends of mine. I was very happy to be able to play the RPTQ with them. We won everything there. We didn't really know who was going to play what. I played Blue-Eyed Gift. Christophe played Legacy because he's been playing Magic for the longest, and we thought he would be best in that format. And Branko played Modern because he says, my only good PT results have been Modern, and I know my deck, so that's how we decided what to play.
Excellent. Congratulations on getting to the top 8 in just your second Pro Tour. And we got a ceremony to conduct pretty soon, so get ready for a little bit more time in the bright lights.
Thank you.
Marie, it's pretty fantastic to see Christophe Grégoire here, because we're the best part of a decade ago when the Belgians were, I would say, at the heart of European Magic, and there was a Moraine Liebert with his 4 Pro Tour top 8s, 2007 to 2010, very much a part of that squad, and indeed ours on the European coverage scene. But now we've got this new brand of Belgian player, and Christophe Grégoire straddles those 2. Tell us a bit more about the Belgians. Christophe Grégoire, Branko Naric, and Thomas Vanderbilt.
So this is really cool. We've got an RPTQ qualified team, top finishers at their RPTQ.
Now, I've got to say, that's a ringer RPTQ team, because they are super good.
Yes, we have 32 Pro Tours played among them, 145 Grand Prix, and 1 top 8, and that is Christophe Grégoire has a top 8 from Honolulu back in 2009.
So that's the 3 of them. So they're the Belgians. We've got Wu Hull and Orange, Grégoire, Naric, and Van der Pelt. And then actually the first match that we saw conclude out on the floor was between Carvalho, Saporito, and Ramao against the Brazilian PTQ winners on the Sunday of Grand Prix Santiago in Chile, Pereira, Desconci, and Baldin. But it is Carvalho, Saporito, and Ramao who make it in. Tell us a bit more about them. There's a lot to say.
So there is quite a lot, more than $500,000 in combined earnings among this team. So very impressive. More than 100 Pro Tours played among them, more than 200 Grand Prix, 7 Pro Tour top 8s on this team here. So not too shabby, and 30 Grand Prix top 8s, 1 Pro Tour win, of course, for Carlos Ramao on this team.
Right, now we will do this officially tomorrow, but it looks to us, our preliminary math is that Harry Utter-Leyton, as a result, partly of the excellence of Bertu, Salvato, and Pozzo, but because of the top 4 here for Carvalho, Saporito, and Ramao, we believe they may well be in the Team Series Championship in Las Vegas.
And I saw a tweet from Ramao, I believe, that said he was so happy that he cried to hear this news. Yeah. So very personal and very awesome for this team.
All right, well, why don't we meet all 12 players who will be back tomorrow for the top 4. It's time for the top 4 announcement. Let's hand you down to the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the feature match area here at Pro Tour 25th Anniversary. It is time for our top 4 announcement. We had a clean cut for top 4, and in first place Woo, Hull, and Orange from Team Hot Sauce Games. In second place with 33 match points, Josh Utter-Leyton, Ben Stark, and Martin Juza from Team ChannelFireball. In third place also with 33 match points, Carvalho, Saporito, Romao from Hararuya Latin. Just one team left. Also on 33 points, Gregoire, Neerink, and Vanderpels. Ladies and gentlemen, your top four for Pro Tour 25th anniversary.